Hello. It has been a long time and I thought I would just make a quick little update while I'm getting ready for the day and say what I've been up to, where I have been. First of all, as you can see, I am now mostly brown, quite dark at the roots. I'm naturally a kind of like that ugly mousy brown, like that in between brown and blonde. And I just could not maintain the blonde. So I was tracking blonde all the way up for the wedding. And then I've maintained it for a few dyes after the wedding. I was like, I just don't have the time. Like 3 to 4 hours every 6 weeks. I just don't have that. It was a nightmare to try and roster in against my schedule, because I'm obviously now on a rotating schedule. And I was just like, no, not doing it anymore. We will see how this plays out, whether it can just grow out and I can just maintain the ends, but we will see. Gave it my hair a quick little brush and I'm just going to sit here and straighten it and then curl it. But yes, what have I been up to? I've been flat out, like seriously. I've been tired. I've filmed a lot of videos, I just don't have the time to edit them. Filming is much easier than editing. I just don't have the time to edit. And not edit to the standard that I want to, which is important. But yes, what have I been up to? I am working at, well, 2 jobs actually, and they count as a part of infection control. So obviously coronavirus is going on at the moment, and we have a swabbing clinic, a drive-through swabbing clinic where we test for coronavirus. So a little swab in the back of the throat and then a swab up each nostril. So I've been working there. The benefit of that position is the way that the system works is you need an admin person to check in, like the car full of patients, and then they drive up to the clinical station, which is typically a nurse, and they swab them. And because I'm in a student nursing position, I can jump between the two. So some days it's super easy and I just honestly sit down and I'm just like, hello, what's your name? Okay, bye, off you go. Super duper easy admin. And then other times it's like, okay, what are you here for? What's been going on? How long have your symptoms been going on for? Over a week? Okay, thanks for coming in though. So yes, I say everything in jest. Obviously I'm professional and I behave, but internal monologue is like, oh, you should have been here at day 1. We've been very lucky. We haven't had too many outbreaks here. So in the whole grand scheme of things, we had one person from Brisbane who had stayed on Magnetic Island, which is the island across from us, and they had coronavirus. They had picked it up while they were down south, like where they live, and they had it while they were here, but there was no community transmission from that. We had a Cairns outbreak. I think there was 2 there though, but the latest one was a taxi driver. So that concerned quite a few people. I myself had been in Cairns that period, because they were out in the community for, I think it was like 10 days, like a significant period of time. It was over a week. And yeah, a lot of us, like when we are traveling up there for work and that kind of a thing, you jump in a taxi to be able to get to your hotel or to be able to go to pick up your car or whatever's happening. So yeah, I had actually been in Cairns with the vaccinating team. I was there I think for like 2 or 3 days. So as soon as I came back, I was just like, oh, super easy, get a swab, don't have to worry about it. But yeah, again, there was no community transmission from that. And then just the other week, so about like a week ago now, there was a pilot. So a pilot was here in Townsville, had been out in the community. They had been to like a couple of restaurants and stuff like that. And so far, no community transmission, which is, we're very lucky. Very lucky, that's all I can say. Obviously that'll happen the week of the wedding, so we found out on the Tuesday everything got shut down. That was my bridal shower night, so that got cancelled. And then we had to kind of prepare, like, okay, what's gonna happen? Are we gonna have to get married in the backyard? Yada. We had the wedding for Saturday, and it just happened that Friday night they announced that everything was gonna go back to, not normal, but like that we're allowed up to 100 people at the wedding. And at that point, all the people that were flying in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday obviously hadn't flown in because they didn't know what was happening. So a lot of our Brisbane family didn't come up. a lot of the immediate family, like our grandparents and stuff, had flown up like a week before or 2 weeks before, just to try and minimize anything like that happening, which was lucky because it did end up happening. But yeah, so I missed all that, and then I had a couple of days off after the wedding, and by that time everything had kind of like settled down because it had been like a full week since the incident. Then this one, I had already had shifts allocated at my other job, and so I didn't need to get called in for that, but I've helped out a couple of shifts there and picked up a couple of extra ones. So my other job has been on the flip side of things and vaccinating. I have to remember to keep getting ready as well. I keep talking too much. I have a few videos to film for my university before I graduate, so I have 2 days off and I have to get that done today or tomorrow, but ideally today. But yes, the other job that I have is actually vaccinating, which is super duper exciting because that's, you know, a level above what students can typically do. So there's been, I think there's about 20 on the side, like a lot of people, and I was the first one on the floor, which was super exciting. So we have a registered nurse like watching over us and that kind of a thing, and yeah, we get to vaccinate everyone. That has also seen a couple of influxes, so anytime an incident happens, obviously we had a lot more walk-ins, people get a little bit more worried, and people that were kind of sitting on the fence are like, oh, I'll just go get my vaccine, which we're obviously happy with. But for us, we have to do that balance of, you know, obviously not making the clients, the patients, wait too long. So that's always a balance. And it's unpredictable. Like the nature of both my jobs is it's unpredictable. We don't know. It's just some days there's random influxes, other days there's not, other days it's super quiet. But yeah, I've managed to get almost all of my family in for vaccines. Some are going through pregnancy and stuff like that, and they're a little bit concerned that wise, but you can only give them so much information. All my family, like down south, obviously is vaccinated. They're living in areas where there's actually coronavirus going on. A lot of my peers are vaccinated. It also came out mandatory. I don't know whether I should say, because then it's like revealing my employer, but it came out mandatory for a couple of workplaces, so not just mine, for you to have proof of your vaccines. And there's a bit of tension going on there as far as making it mandatory and stuff like that, but a lot of the other vaccines are mandatory, so having your flu vax every year. A lot of other things are mandatory as part of being in the job, like having a police check and a blue card, etc, etc. And they were going through and saying, you know, it was on your position description and etc, etc. So yes, vaccinating those people are a little bit interesting, shall I just say? Because I have to get consent from them, so I have to say, like, you know, you're here, but I need to be getting valid, like, informed consent. So are you at least neutral? Because if you think it's negative and you don't want to be here, I can't vaccinate you. There was a couple of incidents of people saying that they were under duress and forced to come in here, big words like that kind of thing. So we was like, we can't vaccinate you, and it's not appropriate for us as clinicians to do that. You know, we have to sign this at the end of the day that we got valid consent from you, and we can't take that. And we're also doing kids now, so 12 and above, and same thing, like if parents are bringing them in, I appreciate that you're the legal guardian, but I can, as long as I deem the person to be competent, I can take what they're saying. So if they're saying no, then the answer is no. Their body, their right, their choice. Now, I haven't had anyone like that. I've had people that are sitting on the fence, and we just have, you know, pretty much like a half-an-hour discussion about what the benefits are and what the risks are, and then with that information, they then get to make a decision. And most of the time, but yeah, by the time we get to, they feel like they've got enough information, the good and the bad, they can then make a decision. And all of mine have made the decision to have it. And that's what I always emphasize. I'm like, I'm here sitting as the nurse. It's not my job to force you into it or trick you into it or anything like that. Like, you have to make the decision. It's your body, and it's a 2-dose regime, so you can't just get one shot. If you're agreeing to this, you're understanding that you're getting a shot today, a needle, a vaccination today, and that in 3 weeks time you're going to come back, that you see the benefit in coming back. And if that's not how you feel, then that's okay. I've only really had one major like incident with a parent who like interrupted the consult and that kind of thing, and I was just like, I'm entitled to a safe workplace, so I'm gonna, excuse me, step out. Hi nurse, hi, yeah, that person, can you just transfer them to another bay please? I am super duper lucky. I don't know why, I just keep getting all the good patients. Most of mine are like super thrilled to be there. I've been working there for quite a few months now, and at the start it was all people that had booked appointments and were there, they were in, had already done their research pretty much. Whereas now we're kind of getting to the phase where it's those people that have been sitting on the fence, and some of these latest incidents have been kind of pushing them to come to a decision, and there's a lot of hesitancy, is the word I would say. So not really misinformation, that's more on the rarity, but just the hesitancy, and working through that hesitancy is validating that, like it's okay to be hesitant about a medicine that's going into your body. It's okay to show caution about that. So validating that first of all, and then we go through like what their concerns are and that kind of a thing. But yes, that is what I've been doing for work. So I have no longer doing the travel ones that I was doing, which is sad. I do miss being on the road, I won't lie. I won't lie, I do miss it. But yes, so I haven't been doing those travel ones, but we do travel ones with the current clinic that I work with. I've done some of the outdoor activities, like we vaccinated at the football and stuff like that, so that was super fun. That's kind of, you know, being like out in the community and making it clear that we're there and come get your vaccine. And so that was really good, especially at the football, because we had a lot of people coming up from like say Brisbane and Mackay and Bow and that kind of thing, so like other places, and they can't get bookings down there, or they've got, you know, a 4 to 6 week wait booking, whereas they can start theirs here, get their first dose, and then they are a priority booking for when they go back down south. So oh yeah, I'm on the back end of things. So yes, I'm very busy with work. I've been doing actually like 6 shifts a week, some weeks, most weeks I would say. Submitted all of my assignments. Got an extension for that last essay because girl, I needed it. Submitted all my assignments, and now it is about to be placement time. So I'm so keen, I'm so keen. Oh, the other thing is interviews. So our interviews are done, well, are finishing this week. Mine are done. So here there are 2 main hospitals, a private and a public hospital, and then there's obviously like a whole heap of aged care, a whole heap of GP practices, etc, etc, etc. But I had requested critical care, which is obviously not done at GP practices, it's done at hospitals. So I only had 2 choices of hospitals. I applied to both private and public. My private, I did my public interview first. That was quite easy. It was only 2 questions, very quick. I met directly with the NUM, so the nurse unit manager of the ward that I wanted to be going to. So that was interesting. I didn't think I'd be getting that. And then there was like a workforce planner, so a person that like hires all their nursing people and works in that kind of more HR side of things. So yeah, only 2 questions, super easy, a clinical question and then a like conflict management question. And then they asked if I had any questions for them, and that's when the conversation kind of started going to where I was like, oh, I don't think this is going well. So they basically questioned how I can say I'm passionate about being in critical care if I've never done placements in critical care, nor have I worked in critical care. And so I felt I gave like valid reasons, and then the conversation came back around to that question, and I was like, okay, so here's some other examples of why I think I want to be in this side of things, and etc, etc. And they're like, yeah. And I was like, okay, but okay, so bye. So I didn't leave feeling very confident after it. And then there was like med-cal questions and that kind of thing. So everyone like sits out the back and we fill in this little thing, and that was super easy. It was just looking at some errors on a medication chart, and you know, they had an allergy and there was a medication that wasn't indicated because they had an allergy and it was anaphylactic reaction. So simple things like that. We have found out since then, so the way that the public hospital was working is that they would take their preferred candidates and essentially give them a verbal offer, because we're not registered yet. So we don't have ARPA registration to be able to actually give the job to, and some people like me haven't done placements, some people haven't finished their assignments, that kind of thing. So we haven't actually graduated to be able to get ARPA registration. And that's obviously part of hiring a nurse, having ARPA registration and a degree. So until that's all done and signed off, they can't give us a written offer of like a contract. So all the preferred candidates got their phone call directly from the NUM. I didn't get that phone call, and the opposite phone call that you could hear would be from an amazing lady who's like the workforce kind of planner specifically for nursing, and she would phone you directly and give you feedback if you, what she called, bombed out of your interview. So if you did super terrible on your interview, if you said something that was unsafe, or you know, didn't escalate conflict appropriately, or didn't handle it, or that kind of a thing, or if something else that you said in your interview was completely off track and they didn't feel comfortable with you, she would call you directly and run through that, so that in 6 months time, when you get a job somewhere else and you've done 6 months, you can come back and apply, and it would be applying through her. So put in your application, but she's actually one of the people that go through the applications, and she puts people where they want to go and stuff like that. So getting that from her, obviously it comes from the people that interviewed you, etc., but getting that and having that personal phone call with her, and then your response to that phone call is would be beneficial, even if you bombed out the interview. So I didn't get that. Then the in-between category is what's called merit listed. So that's where they like your resume enough, they like what you've done so far, they liked your interview, but just the place that you requested didn't want you for whatever reason. We don't get to find out those reasons. I'm about to go on placement there, so I'm going to ask for feedback when it's appropriate and they're not too busy. And the way it came across to me, it was just the fact that I hadn't done a placement there. And that's just luck of the draw. Unfortunately, the pandemic has meant that a lot of our placements, specifically for my university, have been pushed out. You know, there were some people that still hadn't finished their last semester placement, you know, until recently in the last month or so. So that's kind of pushing things out. Whereas back in the day last year, everyone would have been pretty much finished their placement, or have at least started their final placement, to be able to get a reference from that placement, to be able to take it into that interview and say, no, I'm ready to graduate. I didn't have that. I had it obviously from my workplace. I had glowing references from where I've been working, but I didn't have it from placement, and that was questioned. So I felt like that was the thing that, I mean, I didn't feel comfortable with their, how do I word it? Because by no means were they mean or anything like that. And I think it is a valid concern, especially going into critical care. How do you know you actually like this? How do you know that you are invested in this? You say you want a career here. How can you know you want a career in this specialty if you haven't been in that specialty? I think that's a valid concern, especially hiring a graduate. So I was like, yeah, fine, that's a reason. I'm happy with that. And my understanding is that's the reason. That's the only thing I can think of, because I didn't say anything unsafe or anything on, or maybe there was just simply better candidates. People that had recently been on placement, people that they knew would be doing well, that kind of a thing. So who knows? Who knows? But yes, the in-between category is merit listed. So they sent out an email telling us that we're merit listed, so we haven't got that phone call back, the good one, nor have we got the bad phone call where, no, go away, start looking for another job basically. We're in that category of merit listed. And anyone that found that out has been given an email. They're still doing that. So when I go to work, some of the girls are like, wait, you got your email? I haven't got my email. So they are still in the process of doing that, and they said they'd let us know by the end of this week. Today it's only Thursday, and I found out on Tuesday, yeah. And then yesterday, Wednesday, was my private. I keep getting confused. Normally I would just say like the name of the hospital, but I want to try and minimize in case I, you know, get the job and reveal where I work and that kind of a thing. So it's very confusing. But yes, the private hospital. I have loaded far too much foundation, bear with me. But yeah, so interviewed with them. That was meant to be a face-to-face interview, but like I said, we had that recent outbreak. So that all changed to Zoom, and I had to follow up and make sure I got my Zoom link because I didn't get that. And there's just a little questionnaire about do we have any limitations on our practice. So I will write down on mine that I wear glasses, if you've got any issues hearing, that kind of a thing, squatting, lifting, being able to roll patients, etc, etc. So if you've got any injuries, that's where you let them know. And then we had our interview over Zoom. I was actually the first one, so that's super cool. And they were like all bubbly and enthused because it was like, you know, the start of the day. They weren't like tired after interviewing multiple people. And the interviews were for 20-minute allocations. And so I was like, okay, that's like 3 an hour. They're not going to be doing it for long because they started at 9:30. And I think the latest option was like a 3 or something. So I was like, okay, so there's not that many applicants. And I know there's quite a few jobs because critical care is your ICU and your emergency department. So it can be either. And a benefit of the private hospital a benefit of the private hospital is that they also do rotation ones as well. So not so much for the critical care that I applied for. I think the other category was just acute care, I think they just called it. But you can do rotations, so you can do like a 3-month stint, a 3-month stint, a 4 months, sorry. 3 rotations of 4 months to see different wards, see different specialties. That interview went pretty dang well, I felt. I felt far more comfortable in it. I felt like it was less grilling. And I don't know if that was just because I was nervous on the public hospital one. I was more nervous with that one. Especially because I was speaking to the num of the ward that would take me, and I'm about to do placement. So yeah, I was quite nervous. As soon as I walked in and saw her, I was like, oh god, here we go, here we go. Now's the time to shine, and if you don't shine, you fool. So yes, I felt more comfortable with the private hospital. Their interview process was that it was a critical care num, and same thing, one of their workforce planning kind of side of things. I can't remember exactly what her title was, apologies, I was nervous, but you know, that side of things. And there was quite a few questions. The first one was, tell us a little bit about yourself. And I was like, girl, this is my life, so all I'm going to talk about right now is this. Like, I don't do much else. But you could kind of tell, like, when they were happy with the answer, they kind of like would stop nodding and almost be like indicating for you to like wrap it up, that you would like tick their box. So could I like talk, could I build rapport, could I say appropriate things, that kind of thing. Then it went into, oh, see, I can't even remember. There was a lot of questions. I think it was like 6, 7 questions. Why did I choose the hospital? Why did I choose, they didn't ask why I chose the program actually, but why I chose the hospital. Conflict resolution, a clinical case where we had to escalate, and then it was a couple of things. So like name the 6 rights of medication administration, a couple of those like random things as well. But what I had talked about, oh, and that was the other one, quality for improvement or something like that. Explain what that means to you. And that's before all the questions where I started going a little bit wrong with. So with that, I had actually, as part of my answer, said feedback is also important. So yes, you can have all these, you know, high level management things, but on the floor, feedback is important, and being able to accept feedback and give feedback, because I talked about it as more like the leadership role that I'll try and head down into. So being able to accept feedback, not take it as a personal attack, but accept that your peer is trying to recognize that you have room for improvement, is doing the right thing by letting you know, hopefully in a nice polite way. accepting that as feedback, hearing that. You might not necessarily agree, but they've got a different opinion of how things should be done, and maybe they've got a different spin on how to do things, etc, etc. Because there's no right way. Like, everyone draws up a needle different ways, etc, etc. So unless it's like an unsafe practice, but blah blah blah. That's just me waffling at the moment. I'm trying to remember what I said in the interview. It went very quickly. But yeah, I had basically just spoken about accepting feedback, and being able to give feedback, and thanking someone for giving you feedback, thanking a peer for recognizing that you have room for improvement, and feeling comfortable enough to share that with you, because that's what you should be building towards. And then yeah, they asked me the 6 I had some medication. I was like, oh crap. I'm like, now I feel like I'm put under pressure, and I'm like, oh god. And so I had said, like, I started losing myself, because I was like, no, because there's right to document and there's right to refuse, but not everyone includes right to refuse. And she's like, oh, that's bonus points. And I was like, okay, but I've got my bonus point, but now I've lost track of the other one that I was missing. And then so they actually prompted, they like pointed at their watch, and I was like, oh yes, right time. And I was like, thanks for the prompt, lady. So that was like a bit of a joke. And I managed to joke about so it was about, like, you know, what do you do if you can't get your stuff done in the day, kind of a thing. I was like, well, you be honest about it. And they're like, yep. And they just wrote that down. And I was like, no, I'll say like a proper spiel. So then I said, you know, explaining your situation, so giving context to the situation, you know, making sure you don't look lazy or anything like that, giving context to the situation, like, hi guys, I just had bowel movements in bed 3, 4 and 5, and I had to change a sheet, so I'm behind. And they just started cackling their heads. So I was like, yes, okay. So that was good. I felt like I was able to build rapport with them, and make it a bit, not so much jovial, but, you know, be like, we've all been there before. This is what we do. This is the right answer. We understand that there's hard times. We understand that there's good times. Remain professional. Don't be an idiot, you know. It was able to be more, I felt more relaxed, and so I think it came across better. Whereas in the public hospital, I was very nervous, because I was meeting directly with the num, and I had never met her before. So I don't think my nerves came across, but I think when I was questioned about using the word passion or passionate, and how that could be valid and justified if I've never actually been there before, I think they could see that yeah, I didn't like that question. But it's a valid question, and this is what I said to my mum when I was talking to her on the phone about it. I was like, I would ask that question. If I was a critical care num, I would want to make sure that the people getting into critical care knew the heck that was going on, knew that it was an intense workplace at times, and can handle it. I don't want some Joe Blow coming on in and leaving the grad program in 2 months time because they can't hack it, you know. So it's a valid question. But yeah, so interviews done. That one, the private hospital, we find out at the end of October, so within the next 3 weeks. And they did a double check, and they asked, you know, we apparently get a phone call, so they weren't sure on like the exact details. I didn't bother asking about merit list, etc, etc, etc. The private hospital, even if we don't get the grad program, we can still apply, we can still get a job there. It's just not in their like supported program. So that's another thing as well. It's like, I'm like keeping in mind, I'm like, oh, plenty of jobs out there. I also, like I said, work in the swabbing and the vaccination roles as a student and nurse, and they are putting on, oh sorry, bomb job. They are putting on graduate positions there as well. They had to do that this year because there's just pandemic response. What more can I say? So yes, they are doing that for next year as well. So that will be my not so much backup plan, because it's not a backup plan, it's a valid plan. But that's what I'll be doing while I'm going on placement, going and having a talk to my current num and just being like, hey, what do we want to do? I got merit listed, who knows where they're going to put me, who knows if I'm going to like where they put me, I like working here, what do we want to do? And I had just done obviously my referee report to be able to do their applications, and we had just done a big like like reappraisal kind of thing of like my job. So we had just sat down and just gone through the good and the bad, that kind of a thing. And it was actually my mum that had suggested, you know, why don't you just stay here? Because yeah, she asked me like, you know, where are you applying for, what's happening, da, da, da. And she's like, oh, why don't you just stay here if you want to do post-grad stuff? And I was like, oh, I didn't really like thought about that. And she's like, yeah, you know, we hire people here, da, da, da. And I was like, yeah, like, but yeah, I didn't really think of that. And she's like, you would have an easy job here, you could sit here and study as well, and you still only have to do the 0.7, and we would just ask that when we get influxes that you pick up if you can. I was like, oh yeah. So that was a good conversation, but she's been away on leave. So when I've got days off during my placement, that's my intention, to go and have a little chat with her and be like, you know how you said this? You know how I was like, oh, I've never actually heard of that. I did not get my, I was not a preferred candidate. So, do you want to keep me around? Because yes, I want to do some postgrad study and I want to be quite aggressive with that. I've been already looking at which ones are Commonwealth supported places and which ones are direct entry, which you have to have 6 months experience in, which ones you have to be working in the specialty for, that kind of thing. Most of them are, you have to be doing at least like 2 days. Some are more, some are 7 shifts in the fortnight. So it just depends. I don't want to be too heavy because I'm just filming the CAS video for uni. What else? Placement. I'm about to go on placement. So I have 1 more shift. I've had the cruisiest week this week. I've only had 4 shifts. Life is so relaxed now. I have no more assignments, no more interviews. It is a breath, a little sigh of relief time. But yes, so I start placement next week. I already have 3 weeks on my roster. It's a 6-week placement, all at the same place. And I already have 3 weeks of the roster, so I already know what I'm doing for the first half of it. Super duper easy, 5 days on, 2 days off basically. And I'm consistently with 2 preceptors, so that's really good as well. Other wards that I've been on for placements, you know, you get allocated up to 3 preceptors, but then when you actually go through your shifts and line it up, only about half of the shifts actually line up with any of those preceptors. So yeah, so they've obviously like really worked hard to do that. So every single shift I'm with a preceptor for at least the first 3 weeks. So they obviously might take their own sick leave and that kind of a thing, and I might shuffle around, but that's the first time I've had every single shift in the first 3 weeks be allocated with the preceptor and not have days where they're completely off and that kind of a thing. So very, very impressed with that side of things, which is obviously important going into critical care. So the other thing as well is so when I was last on my placement on a medical ward, there was an enrolled nurse working there, and we got chatting, and he's up to where I was up at study, etc, etc. And I was like, oh, where did you apply for your final placement? And he said critical care as well, blah blah blah. And then ran into each other again at the interview, and I was like, hey, are you applying for critical care? And he's like, yeah, you're applying for critical care. And I was like, I both applied for critical care. Have you found out whether you got your critical care for your placement? He's like, yeah, I start there in like whatever many days. I was like, I'm there too. Another girl that I have been on every single residential with, because she also lives here in Townsville. She also works at the vaccine clinic now with me as well, and we are going on our placement together. So she's on the list. So yes, it's good when you have like a couple of students that you know. We share some of the same shifts as well, so we can kind of bounce off of each other. Leaning on our peers and be like, hey, we're all trying to get through, we're all trying to get jobs, let's just be kind to each other. So that's been nice as well. Not really that competition kind of thing like I feel like it was in our first and second year. I think some people have matured and realized that we're going to be colleagues and peers in a year, 2 years time, and that we need to be treating each other as such, as opposed to trying to stand out. Our time to stand out has been and done. Our GPA is pretty much secured. Don't have to worry about that. we've had jobs, we've had clinical experience, like we can't do much more. That's honestly how I feel. Like I can't do much more. All I can do is like turn up and just do well placement. The other thing, which is why I feel like I'm so tired, apart from working like 6 to 7 shifts a week at times, but has been that the other half, Nick, my husband, is away. So he's away for work. He is away for 7 weeks. I don't know. I've lost track of time. It's like we're nearly at the halfway mark. So he will be back at my halfway point of placement. And yeah, but it's really good though. He still is able to talk to me most days, and so he's like showing me all his adventures and all the animals that he's seeing. And yeah, he's like, I wouldn't say living his best life, like as much as you can, but and it's really cute because there's he's out like in this rural community, and there was some nurses that traveled there to go and vaccinate the local community. And he's like, oh, that's what my wife's doing back home. And so apparently they got chit-chatting about that, and there's a lot of like wildlife there, so he's showing me all the nature, and he's living his best life, drinking coconuts every day and showing me these big massive machetes that they use to chop up their coconuts every day. And he took his hammock out there, so he's like sitting in the hammock for most of the day. Has internet, which is good, so he can like watch movies and keep himself entertained, and he's being quite artistic, if you've seen on my Instagram, doing a lot of fun little drawings and making me feel loved, doing some drawings of me, which is super cute. But yes, life has been very quiet without him. We have the cat, we have the bird, but very quiet, very quiet. But that's pretty much it. That's kind of what I've been doing for the last last couple of months. Yeah, that's basically what I've been doing. I'm ready to graduate. Like, I'm ready to be a real nurse. We keep joking that's what RN stands for, a real nurse. So I'm ready, I feel capable, and now it's just playing the waiting game for the rest of the month until I know a little bit more, until my man comes home, and then if it's not figured out, I will figure it out, and I have the rest of the year to figure it out. But yes, thanks for the, I'm sure, long catch up. That's what I've been up to. I will see you hopefully in a couple of weeks with some positive news. Bye everybody.